Hello everybody, today I'm just gonna go through some of my best tips that I have learned through the years to get through that difficult reading that you might be stuck in at the moment. And the truth is that books can be very fun and can be very entertaining, but sometimes they can represent a bigger challenge. I know that the definition of difficult it's a bit vague, and there are countless reasons why a book can be intimidating. But I do think that there are certain tips that can be universal and that at least help me whenever I find myself in front of a book that seems impossible to finish. I think that motivation is the main reason why we feel intimidated. Sometimes we just completely forgotten why we bought the book in the first place or why we're reading it in the first place. And I found that often the way to beat this big obstacle that is losing my motivation is to just go back to the root. I've been going through my books these days and I have been so incredibly shocked at the amount of books that I bought in the moment because I was so excited to read them, and that right now I have no idea what was the original reason. So I think that it's really good to read about it again. Read about the book, read about the author, read about the circumstances in which the book was published, and you would most likely find that motivation again. And also I think that the context of a book can add so much to the content of the book. One of my favorite books is A Movable Feast by Hemingway. That is a semi-autobiographic book that took me forever to read, but gave me a super in-depth look on Hemingway's life, about the lost generation, about writing, about youth. And the reading wouldn't have been nearly as enjoyable or as easy had I not read about Hemingway before. But also, the book wouldn't have had the same impact on me if I just read it for the sake of reading it and forget about having a purpose. So, a bit of a long rant, but you know what I mean. Don't be afraid of having your dictionary close to you when you're reading. Being confused or having the feeling that you're missing something is one of the main things that makes me want to drop a book. If I have the tools to help me understand this, the excuse is completely out of the door. So apart from a dictionary or a translator, one of my most practical and recurring tips is using internet resources like Spark Notes. That's a page where you can find breakdowns and analysis of the book, chapter by chapter. You can even have quizzes to test your knowledge of the book, and you just make sure that you're understanding everything properly. In fact, I used this not so long ago reading The Great Gatsby because I was worried that because of the language barrier with English not being my first language and the book being quite old, I would miss something in the way. So I would simply finish a chapter, go check the summary and the quiz, and move on with another chapter. Obviously, Spark Notes isn't the only resource. If you find it difficult to understand the book, whatever the reason, you can find all kind of analysis online. Another of my go-to resources is YouTube videos. I love Crash Course Literature to get a taste of the book and more in-depth information. There's also really awesome booktubers. One of my favorites is Climb the Stacks. Her reviews are always a masterclass on the book she's talking about. She's so knowledgeable and so well spoken. And if you know Spanish, I also really like Favorosco. Same thing, very knowledgeable, very well spoken. Obviously these are the ones that fit my personality, but the internet is so huge that I'm sure that you can find tons of channels and pages that will be useful for you. The third tip is kind of a very basic one. Break it down, have a goal. If you have a book that is about 500 pages, just decide how many pages are you going to read a day, how much time are you going to read a day. And I think this works so well because when we have separation, it gives us that feeling of accomplishment, and also you get to have control about how much time is it going to take you and things like that. So for example, a book that I'm reading right now, that is Rayuela by Cortázar, is the perfect example of this because it's a very long book, but it has very short chapters. There are chapters that are literally half a page. And I think that having the pleasure of finishing a chapter, it just gives you that momentum that you need to keep going, or at least to end your reading session on a happy note. So if you can make the separation for yourself, the process will be a lot better and a lot easier. If the book you're trying to read is dense and complicated, you don't need any extra problems, and a bad edition is an extra problem. If the book is not comfortable or easy to carry, hold in your hand, it is so much less likely that you will pick it up and take it somewhere A perfect example of this is the edition that I have of Les Mis that I picked up at a street bookstore. It was very cheap. I think it was under €5, so I got excited and I bought it. And this was 4 years ago and I have not touched it yet. And I know that it's not an easy book, so I can't promise that with a better edition I would have had the courage to do it. But I mean, look at it. It's huge. It is so heavy. It's not flexible at all. Look at those words. Like, the font is so tiny. And I know that it is a big boy, so the design makes sense. But I realized I would be way better if I had the option of having the book divided in 2 books, so a volume 1 and a volume 2. But you live and you learn. I prefer more compact, tiny books, reasonable font size, easy to carry, not very heavy. I used to buy everything hardcover, but not anymore. I very much prefer a softcover now. For example, like this, something that's a bit sturdier and compact, but that's not as uncomfortable or as heavy as a hardcover. This one's kind of easy. There's no better way to keep yourself accountable and motivated than counting on someone else. Maybe you don't have a friend or a family member willing to read with you, but there's always the option of joining a book club, either in real or online. One good place to find all of these book clubs is obviously Goodreads. That is basically a social media that's only dedicated to books. And I used to use Goodreads a lot back in the day when I had a blog. I've forgotten about it for a while and I kind of feel like going back because I think it's really useful. You can find a lot of discussion groups, a lot of challenges. You can set challenges for yourself, and I think that's really good for motivation, and especially if it's a book that you're struggling with, having that sort of accountability, I think it's really nice. Another reason why I struggle with difficult or long books is because I don't feel accomplished if I spend too much time reading just one book. You kind of feel like there's something wrong with you, that you're too slow, so sometimes I find it nice to alternate my reading with something else. So I might go back to a trilogy I know I loved and that it's easy for me to read because I am familiar with the story, and just read carelessly without even finishing it, just reading for the sake of reading it, or even better, short stories. They're so easy to go through and they give you closure, which is very much needed sometimes. Going back to the example of 100 Years of Solitude, this book is actually listed as one of the most difficult books to read ever. It's the story of a family all through several generations. And so, following the Latin American tradition, the characters are named after other family members, which means that by the end of the book, you have several characters with the same name. So you have several José Arcadios, you have several Remedios, or whatever, and it makes it harder to follow the story. That's why lots of editions come with a family tree, in case anyone gets lost. I personally was surprised that I didn't get confused, but just in case I did, as I'm showing you right now, highlight the names the first time that they show up so that every single time that I see a new character, I have to stop and think, is this a new character at all? And I think that the best way to approach books like this is by doing your own scheme. In this specific example, I find that you can get easily spoiled if you look at the family tree too much, or sometimes another very common thing is to have several stories intertwining or non-linear stories, like in the case of Slaughterhouse 5, that it's also one of my favorite books, but since there's time travel involved, the story is not linear and it can get confusing. So my tip is to just get a piece of paper, put it in the back of the book, and just take notes and make schemes and highlight if you have to highlight. Do whatever it is that you have to do with the book. The book is not sacred. This one is a bit weird, but in extreme occasions you require extreme measures. And I work really well with hearing things, but I am not a fan of audiobooks on their own, because I find that since they're less tangible, I get distracted. So I wouldn't go for an audiobook for a difficult read, but what about playing the audiobook and reading your physical copy at the same time? I know it sounds a bit like I'm in preschool, like I'm struggling to read something, and so I need someone to read it for me, but if it's gonna help me, I think there's no shame in it. Also, there's so many great audiobooks. Some are even read by Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm actually looking forward to getting the Metamorphosis read by Benedict Cumberbatch. He has lots of audiobooks. You should give it a try.
January 1999 Rocket Summer. 1 minute it was Ohio winter, with doors closed, windows locked, the panes blind with frost, icicles fringing every roof. Yeah, this is no Benedict Cumberbatch, just my Siri with a British accent, but you get the idea. Okay, bye.
I might get yelled at because lots of people are mad about this. But I think there's no shame in watching the movie. Like, there's been books that I wouldn't have read unless I watched the movie, because maybe they just felt too intimidating or not interesting enough. And by watching the movie, you get a general idea of the themes, of the tone of the novel. I think there's no shame in that. I do think you have to be careful and read what people say about the adaptation. Is it a good one? Is it not? And keep that in mind when you're watching the movie, so that you're not unfair with the book and end up judging it because of the movie. This is my favorite one. I think that there is power in the location and in the things that you do. And if you can make your overall reading experience so much more comfortable, so take the book out. I know that this is not a good advice in this moment, but maybe if you cannot go outside, like no one should, you can go to the balcony. Once this is all over, go to a cafe and read the book, read by the pool, things like that. I think that when you set a scene that's comfortable for you, something very nice happens, and is that it's you and the book. I find that this works very well when I'm traveling. I'm in a new place and it's just me and my book, and I have no other books because maybe I didn't bring any other. And so I have that book, and that book is my mission and it's my companion, and it is what I have. And I know that sometimes this is not an option. I'm not saying that every single time you have to go outside to be able to finish a book, but there's so many ways that you can make it nicer for yourself, kind of like create that environment of it's you and the book is the mission kind of thing. And it just feels less like pressure and more like an experience. So I don't know, dim the lights, go to the balcony, serve yourself a nice cup of something, and read your book. That's all I have for today. I hope that you like the video, that you find the tips useful. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in another video.